Hello, everybody. This is Jonas. I'm here with Jason from VillageCo, which is a distributed community in different cities in the States, as far as I understand. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, it's a project to build community in local areas, and right now we are in a few places in the States.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're taking some time to explain what it is about to focus on the microsolidarity network. I think, yeah, there's like a lot of overlap, and I'm really curious. We've been talking twice already, and I was really excited to keep talking and to make that available also for others. So, yeah, maybe you just want to say a few words about who you are, how you came to um, start that project or co-hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. I got connected to Microsolidarity because one of our members attended one of the courses that you put on, and it just brought to our attention the need for a little bit of training, especially for facilitators. So I thought it was a really great natural kind of connection. So my background is in nonprofit management and work for about 25 years. And yeah, through COVID, a group of folks came together and we built this kind of co-created this concept called Village. And now we just started a nonprofit last year. We're still in the startup phase, but we're taking everything that we've experienced and bringing it into a mission, which is to increase connection and belonging in our local and existing communities. And I love that. It's like nice and simple, something that a lot of people connect with. And so yeah, that's a little bit about me and how we got started.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, increased connection, belonging in local communities. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I feel like like the natural why to that I think is also something we all connect with really deeply, which is that a lot of the problems and challenges we see today, if you go upstream from those problems and challenges, you'll see disconnection. That disconnection from each other and from life in general is one of our fundamental core problems.
yeah,
So yeah, think addressing that and not having to look at all of the downstream issues is something that is pretty rare.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think this framing of this challenge will resonate with many people who are listening to this, and certainly does with me. Um, I'm curious, what if you can say a little bit more about how you address this challenge? Like, what is it that you do specifically as a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people listening will have had some experiences in working in local communities and bringing people together. So I think it's worth noting that we are all a part of a big movement that's happening, like an upspring of a swelling of community building that's happening in communities all over the country, all over the world. And that's really encouraging. Like I really love seeing that. And so there's lots of experimenting happening, and it's all done by a lot of passionate individuals that just really want to bring people together. So that's cool. So we see ourselves in this context that we're all kind of working on this, how do we figure this out? How do we build local connections? So what we're doing is focusing on this particular part of it. Like getting people together is not too, it is difficult. I don't want to undersell that, but you can get people together if you kind of walk around and you have a little bit of charisma and have an idea. You can get people together, but the real question is, what do you do when people come together? Like, how do you use your time together? And how do you structure that time in a way that's liberating and is not constrictive? Like, we're here to do just one thing or talk about one thing. How do we open that up so that anybody can bring what they want into it? And so that's a real big challenge. We recently described this challenge as like getting to the edge of chaos, like not having any structure at all is chaos, but we need a little structure. But how can we have just a little bit of structure
Mm.
and not too much? So we call this liberating structure. So what kind of structure is going to set us free and not kind of constrain us? So our innovation at Village is the gathering program. So we kind of like I don't want to compare us to a church because we have no doctrine and nothing we're trying to teach or sell. But you walk into any church, any like organized, I mean, from a Toastmasters club and a Rotary group, which are popular here in the States, and to a church, everybody has a program. And it feels good. Like I want to be a part of things that have a program, because that if it doesn't have a program, now that feels like a random social event, and I feel differently about attending something that's unstructured like that. So I like a program. So our gathering program, is engineered with this kind of liberating structures in mind. So, we're all familiar with the many different things that we can do while we're together, when we're alone, when we're with another person, when we're in small groups, when we're in large groups. There's lots of different tools and lots of different things we can do. So we have gone through those and picked a couple that we think are the most liberating, that create the most space for people. And we have that in our program. So we have kind of 4 main components in there. We walk through it each time. We can do this virtual or in person. And that program ends up empowering people. So when you're walking around, inviting people in your neighborhood, you have that in your back pocket of like, it's going to be a great program. I know exactly like what's going to happen. And we can especially invite people to bring their passions and their interests into it, and they will have space in the program to share those.
Yeah, cool. I love what you're saying about being on the edge of chaos. Like, it's so important to have some structure, and the way we talk about it in Micro Solidarity is a minimum viable structure. Like, you want to have just enough structure so that people have some orientation, and it's like clear how to play in this arena. But on the other hand, you don't want the structure to be encroaching upon you and like take up so much space that you can't breathe anymore, and like there's no space for aliveness. And
Right.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that. I love that minimal viable structure. Absolutely. Very synonymous with liberating structure, the
yeah,
intention. Yeah.
yep. Wow, there's so many things that you just mentioned that I'm curious about. For one, like how do people go about inviting people? You said you're just walking around the neighborhood, and is it intended to like really pull in loads of people, or is it like a kind of slow and steady from a small core outward type movement?
Yeah. In general, it's a trickle, and that tends to feel the best. We grow organically, so we don't promote. At least we haven't yet. And again, we're in a startup phase right now, and we are very much experimental. And we're working on the kinds of tools that we might use if we had more publicity, if we were doing like TV interviews and we were talking about, the intention to build community in neighborhoods within a city area. So that's to come. But currently, the only way into a village is basically knowing someone in the village. And people are invited in from all places. Like some people, at the farmer's market, you just chat with someone and then you let them know about village and they show up and they're there. Others are like close friends that are skeptical about joining things, and they've heard about it for a little while. It's like, okay, finally, I'll come and check it out. So it's all things. We've also, as a group, been using Meetup. So yeah, Meetup I think is a great platform, because people who are looking to join something are on Meetup, and so that ends up being a really good audience. So we've posted some of our events on Meetup and found people that way.
Cool.
But
And
also I should just, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to add one more thing there, that because we're also a startup, we have like a current practice and we have an intention that we're moving toward that's different. So our current practice is that we're just trying to get anybody in, like in Seattle and in Boise in particular, to kind of join our community there. But the intention is to go into neighborhoods.
yeah,
And we're starting that process right now. Like I'm organizing within the apartment complex that I'm living right now, and I put flyers up, and we've got an email to everybody who lives here, and we've started meeting monthly. And so that is the intention, is that we want to move toward going, door to door, and whatever tools. Like we thought about, farmers markets. We thought about sending postcards out, and there's all kinds of, honestly, there's going to be a variety of ways that it happens, and it should resonate with whoever is actually doing the organizing, what feels comfortable for them. But the intention is to be working in existing and local communities.
right. So on the neighborhood level, like really,
Yeah.
a village would then exist within like one
Yeah.
borough or something, or
Yeah. It goes back to, I use an analogy for why we're thinking about a place like
yeah.
this. It's the last mile analogy, and it
Mm.
has to do with the internet. And so for those that were around in the 90s, when the internet was really starting to blow up and really grow, and there was a lot of investment happening, a lot of big companies were investing in those big fat pipes, that fiber pipes and stuff, that brought information from state to state and country to country. Because they know intuitively that's where the money is. Like all of that information flowing, people are going to pay for it. And they were right. They made a ton of money. what few people were looking at is how do we bring this technology into every individual house in a neighborhood. And we all felt like everybody deserves access to this internet. This is not like everybody could benefit from it, everyone should have it, but it was difficult to solve that problem without money. And so that's why we ended up with disparities. And so I use that analogy because we have disparities today within our community. We have a lot of fat pipe community where we're connecting with people that are like us or think like us. There's like this like-minded, kind of gatherings that we're having. And so it's easy to find those people. We've got these fat pipes created, but we're leaving out so many people in our blocks. Like think about the lady down the street from you that, rarely sees anybody and is lonely. And, like all of those people and all that wisdom and all that, stories and experience and just potential on your block is being left out. So how do we bring that fat pipe of community to every single house on your block? That's the challenge.
Nice. I love the analogy. It's like, how do we plug everybody into that social network?
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So right now you have how many? 3, 4 villages in different places?
Well, we have 7 villages, but they're all like the Seattle Village. We just had our 213th gathering this week. So that's been going for a while, and that's our longest running village. We have a number of other villages, and they're all experimental. So like I said, where we're at now is not like where we're intending to go. But one really powerful village that's been running for 2 years now is called Village Second Chance, and it works in the prison system actually. And we're bringing families together who have loved ones who are on the inside, and just building support around them.
Right.
And that's been really meaningful village, and that operates mostly out of Michigan.
Yep.
But yeah, so we have a family. We have a couple family villages. We have this like family reunion style gathering we've been doing where we have the kids start out and do a little talent show, and then we use our program, and it's an opportunity to connect deeply with family members that normally doesn't happen in our typical social environments like Thanksgiving that's coming up and others. So we have 7 total villages, about 200 members across them.
Cool. And so right now they're a little bit more like one instance of a village is more decentralized at the moment, or like they're not yet that kind of granular at the neighborhood level, or do I get that right?
Correct. Yeah, I think the Whitewater Park Village is where I'm at now, and that's the very first actual neighborhood-like village that's started. But that's why we say existing in local communities is that we see value for this in any community. I think of like a business as a community, and to the extent that that business feels like a community and people are really feel like they belong there and are heard and listened there, that community will operate better and even retain employees better and such. So we're thinking of this model being useful anywhere you would say this is a community. We can build a village within that community in order to deepen the connections and belonging.
Right. So what is the difference then between the village and the community in the end?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's some people who are, this gets into the concept of social capital for me, that the connections that we have to others have real value. And the more connections you have to the people around you, the more value is created, not just for you, but for that whole network, that whole like group. So yeah, there's some good theories around that. But in general, a community doesn't necessarily have those connections, doesn't necessarily have that social capital. And typically it exists within pockets, within communities, like influencer communities. There's a podcaster I love, and we have this community of people that like listen to their podcasts and comment and such. But the relationship is just kind of to the one podcaster and maybe to a few moderators and such. And maybe there's like kind of an inner circle that has a little more contact, but it's not as interconnected as would create, at least more interconnection would create more value in that community. So the difference is that the village is a place where we're actually weaving together those interconnections. It's a place where the building is actually occurring. And it doesn't need to be a village. Like I started this, like this is a movement, like this is not a new idea. Like we're all doing this great work, and so to the extent we're stitching each other together within these existing communities, we are villaging. Like we are doing the village work of everybody's welcome. Everybody has value in unique ways.
Right. So if I get it right, it's like there is a community that is somehow more or less coherent, and it's kind of like held together by something they have in common, either be it the kind of same geographical area that people live in, or the company that they work for, or whatever other thing they have, like having a loved one being in prison or something. And then within that community, they like what Village tries to do is to increase the density of the kind of social fabric, so that people have more access to other people in a way, or to more
Absolutely.
relationship, like social capital, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. And it brings in this idea of like we're all involved in multiple communities.
Yeah.
And so I feel biased towards local community in terms of who I am living near. Because as we're going into these times of great change, as we're navigating really complex issues, we're going through this together. Like you're going to go through it with the people down the street, whether you like it or not. So those are the folks that it's actually really the most helpful to be interconnected to. So we have this phrase we're using called belonging beyond identity, that a lot of our communities have to do with our identities, and I identify as this, and so I want to connect with other people that identify as this, whether that is any from sexual preference to nationality, to ethnic origin. They're all valuable identities, but there is a belonging that's deeper, the most foundational, and I think that ends up becoming where you're living.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it resonates strongly with this hyper local approach. So good to know, like, if I leave my house, I'm still at home. And I can, like,
Yeah,
there's kind of a
exactly.
gradual fading of how at home I am.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, and the word village is a powerful word. I think it calls up a lot of the same, feelings for a lot of people that, a village feels small. So, we're talking about the Dunbar number here in terms of like size, like 1 to 200 people is something that most people can feel comfortable with, having a variety of relationships within that, a lot of kind of casual relationships, a few more connected ones, and then a few, like really committed relationships. That network can be 1 to 200, and it feels natural and easy. And you get a little bigger than that, and that's where you get those structures that come in that don't feel, they dehumanize the whole experience.
yep.
But yeah, village is like everybody, and we're all doing different things, and we all, some people like are picking up the leaves from their neighbors' yards, and others are like checking in on people that are sick, and some people are going to work every day and just cranking through it, and others are raising kids, and we're all just doing different things that help the village as a whole thrive.
Yep. I'm curious how you facilitate that connection. You mentioned like the central pillar of your program is the gathering, or that's the gathering has
Yeah.
a certain program that uses liberating structures. um, I'm curious, what are those, and how do people, like, how is the community itself organized? Like, are there different types of groups? Are there different kind of bodies within the community formally, or is it all completely emergent? Like, how? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two good deep questions there. So the first is about the program. So I'd love to focus on that for a bit, because
Right. Yep.
I've been calling this our innovation. And in a way, it's there's many, like what I'm about to describe as our program is one way to do it, and I fully like acknowledge that there's many ways that this could be done. There's many different tweaks that could be made, and at the same time, when we come together with the confidence that this is our program that we do, that builds a certain, not only identity with the group, but familiarity that allows people with different levels of anxiety and different cognitive like challenges to feel comfortable in that social space. So the regularity is really important. I'd say that's almost more important than anything else, is just having that program be consistent. Okay, so the four components. The first two are very familiar to you, because I know that I've looked into a lot of the work you're doing there. And so the first one is what we call community connections, and that's just one-to-one. So you're connecting with one other person. And so I think it obviously will resonate with all the listeners, that it's so important when you're meeting one-on-one with someone else, and that type of connection within the context of a community is really powerful. So we do community connections where as a group, we break down into one-to-one connections for 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. And we usually use a theme or a prompt that is crowdsourced, or sometimes comes from if we have a theme for the gathering. So we spend 5, 6 minutes talking with someone and you come back together. So we do 2 or 3 of those community connections over the course of the program. And that gives you 2 or 3 different people to connect with. Sometimes it's someone you know and you're deepening it. Sometimes you use the prompt. Sometimes you just totally disregard the prompt and talk about what you want to talk about. It's whatever it needs to happen. And again, so that's that liberating structure of like, we're providing structure, we're making it easy for you. We're randomizing who you connect with. So there's no pressure on trying to pick someone. No one feels left out. And that's the minimal structure there that's needed. And then people take it from there and great things happen on their own. So that's one component. And then the second component is called open space technology. And I think that's also something you're very familiar with. I think to me, this is one of the most crucial, important, liberating structures, minimal structures that exists, because it allows a group to self-organize. So we do, I would say, a very basic version of this. So we don't try and overdevelop it, but we just do a cultivating round where everybody shares what would you like to talk about. And then we identify a few of those topics to break into smaller groups. Everyone chooses a group they can be a part of. We really emphasize being able to move between groups. If you feel like you're not learning or contributing to a group, go ahead and move around. And then when we come back together, we do a quick harvesting, and we call it the share back. And that part of the gathering is the only part we actually record, because we don't want to make these big long recordings that people tend to not really even watch. We keep it short and sweet and let people have the opportunity to get the harvesting round recorded. So those are the 2, I would say, they make up 75% or so of the whole gathering is those 2 components, and about half of it is the open space. So that's great, because I mean, I know whenever I come to a village gathering, if I've got something hot in my mind that I want to talk about, like I know guaranteed I'm going to be able to say something about it, and I'm going to be able to maybe get some people to join me with me on it. Yeah. And we have games played in the open space. People go out for walks and come back. Like, just everything happens in open space. It's just beautiful. I love it. So so those are the 2 main components, and then there's 2 other components that are bringing us together. So the first is the grounding. I experienced my first grounding in COVID in this group that formed as Village, and it was really meaningful to me. And it was certainly at a time when I needed to be grounded so badly. I did not know that this experience existed, but I connect to it in very deep ways. I mean, it's a chance to just be fully present with yourself, with your body, and with the group. We're so used to coming into especially virtual situations where we've like got our email up on the other screen, or where you're like, cruising the internet, looking up terms that were said, and we're just kind of like half there. So we invite people to come and be fully present with the group. And that also is true in person. Our minds are just based, they're all over the place. So groundings are led by community members, and everyone does the grounding a little different. And so I've come to also appreciate that experience too. So the grounding is the 3rd component. And then the 4th is my favorite. And it gets to the content. So another challenge we have in organizing in communities is, how do we make a topic that's sexy, that's going to bring people in, that people want to talk about? What are we going to do? Like, how are we going to be productive? What are we going to move this toward? And we don't want to own that as facilitators. We want that to be owned by the group. So the 4th component is called the acknowledgement. And so we're taking a very basic concept that has been happening in the States here a lot more frequently in the last few years, is the land and labor acknowledgements, acknowledging Indigenous people and the slavery and forced labor that occurred and is still in sometimes cases occurring in the States, as the foundation of our economy. So that acknowledgement is important to have, and there's other things to acknowledge as well. And so we have acknowledgements about the environment. We have acknowledgements about loneliness. We also have acknowledgements about our privileges, and say, like, are we grateful to have this technology that allows us to come together, right now? Are we grateful to be in good health and mentally healthy enough to show up to a gathering, together? So the acknowledgement is just, it's a crowdsourced thing. It's different people lead at each gathering, and it comes from a place of passion, and it provides a bit of content to chew on through our community connections in our open space.
Right. Cool. Wow, this is an amazing flow.
Yeah.
Really like it.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, one of the great opportunities I see is we're a place of practice.
Mm.
So as people are learning and getting confident in facilitating and being a part of this kind of weaving and connection and space holding, we really want to provide the tools and the motivation and the kind of the larger container to put this into practice in your local community and get started now and really bring people together with the confidence that you know exactly what you're going to do, and you're stepping out of the, like, you know, the this is what we're trying to accomplish as a group. You're not doing that. You're saying that the pure value is just connecting together. That's the only purpose, is making these connections. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This sounds very familiar. It's like something many people in the Micro Solidarity Network often say, that one of the biggest benefits they derive from it is like being able to practice as though nobody was watching, or like nobody was kind of telling you, oh, this is wrong, or like there's nothing at stake really.
Yeah.
Just get together to practice connecting, to practice facilitating,
Yeah.
and to practice gathering.
Yeah.
And like,
And then you bring that practice into the world,
yeah, and you bring it
because
into the world.
that's how you end up making really, I mean, you first have to take care of yourself, and you have to build that practice within yourself as you're doing. And then once that foundation is laid, then yeah, you got to bring that practice into the world, because the world needs that. The world needs people like you bringing people together and connecting. So I
Yeah.
think that's where we're saying, like, let's do this. Like, let's bring this into our neighborhoods.
Yep.
But that leads to the second part of your earlier question about the structures within Village.
Right. Yep.
So this is not sustainable. This model is just not sustainable. It takes so much energy and effort of usually one, or if you're lucky, two or three people at the core of a village who are just there every time, who are getting to know all the new people and making sure they feel welcomed, who are following up with people that don't show up, who are asking people to take roles. It's quite a bit of effort, and it's not sustainable. Like ultimately, ideally what we want is this to be a self-sustaining community that runs itself. And the only way that's going to be achieved is if there's a number of people within the core. So one of the structures, well, there's two core structures here. One structure is roles. So after people have been a part of Village for a little bit, they'll notice that different people are speaking at times, different people are leading different components. And so we introduce this concept of roles. And it's very simple. It's just, we have a number of roles, anywhere from 6 to 10 different roles that are needed for each gathering to operate. And so there's this exploration that individuals can go through to learn about these roles and take them. So that's one structure that is really important to Village, is role taking. And we mentioned it during the gathering. We remind people that, we thank our role takers every single gathering, and that thank you ends up being the reminder to the group that this is happening, and this, this takes other people stepping up. And then the question is, like, how do we support those people at the center so that they are not feeling overwhelmed? So the other structure is called Village Core. And so this is an inner group, inner circle within a village. And again, this is like where we're at now is not kind of where we're intending to go, but where we're at now is there's a few people that operate multiple villages, and we meet every Monday night, and we always come together every Monday night, and we support each other. And we have, we call it recruitment and retention. So we're always recruiting members. We're thinking about what are we doing to invite people in and encourage people to invite people in, and then how are we retaining people? And part of retention is role taking. Who has not taken a role yet? Who should we ask to take a role? And then we invite people to that meeting to receive role trainings. So if someone wants to do role for the first time, we say, come on in Monday night. We'll do your role training there. So it just makes a nice, easy pace, a nice, easy place that you can get people plugged in. And then that way, the stragglers that can't make that work, you can work with outside of it. But it provides enough structure that it feels like you're supported as a core member. Yeah. So the idea there is that the Village Core will operate regionally. So like at a city level, or maybe multiple cities, where multiple individuals from cores of multiple villages will come together and remind each other about the work of administration, and just help get that stuff done. So
Yep. Cool. How is role rotation organized? Like, do people like to say, hey, I would like to take a role, or are they, you said now, like, hey, who hasn't taken a role yet, can they be asked to take a role? Like, how does it work?
This is like the thing we have experimented with the most in the last 4 years. And it's so I'll just tell you a little about the journey, because where we ended up with is very similar to where we started, which is just that you have to ask people. It's all about relationships. But we started with Google Sheets, and we're like, hey, get on the Google Sheet, sign yourself up. No one opens up the Google Sheet. There's like like one or two people that get in there. Most people don't do it. It's like, okay, Google Sheet's not working. Now we'll do it in the gathering. We're like, this gathering, okay, Jonas, will you lead our grounding next week? Like, yeah, no, okay, that kind of worked, but it added this energy that we noticed was not quite right, especially for visitors and stuff. We want people to feel like being a part of Village is easy and no pressure, and we don't want to enter pressure into that gathering experience. So that wasn't quite right. Then we asked people to be the role leads, and it's like, you do the grounding every week and try and find someone else to do the grounding and switch it off, and you'll be kind of the grounding lead. And that was fine for a bit, but people burned out, and then no one wanted to take a role because they knew that by taking a role they would become the new the new lead and only get to do that. So all that to say, like, we've been through this big journey with real-time experimentation in a pretty diverse number of communities, to figure out roles. And what we come up with is that the village core manage the roles behind the scenes. So there's no technology, nothing in front of members that they need to access. And we basically we have a list of people who have taken roles in the past, and we just plug them in. We just decide, we talk behind the scenes, and we say, who should we have do the grounding? We just build a monthly schedule. And then every week we email that group that's been put on the schedule and say, hey, we've signed you up for a role this week. If you can take it, great. If not, don't worry about it. We'll fill it during the gathering.
Right.
And so that's been the best way for us to do it. So there's enough people that come in ready to do a role, and then we just at the very beginning of the gathering fill whatever empty roles there are. And yeah, that's been working pretty well for us for about a year and a half now.
Cool. I'm curious, what do you think about this? Because when I hear that, part of me is like, huh.
Yeah.
How
can we pause 1 second?
Yep, all good.
What's that? Yeah.
And we're back. Okay, what comes up for me around this is like a question around maybe empowerment or something like that. Where I have a story, or I have the assumption that one of the main goals of a community like the one you're building, or like any kind of social project, should be to support people to increase their own agency in a way, to build skills and the confidence to step into a leadership role and then step out of it again when it's over, or like when they've had enough of it, or when someone else wants to take the lead for a while. And my theory for how that works is that people kind of need to want it, or need to kind of like have an impetus towards it. Or maybe they're kind of like thrown a little bit into the deep end, but you kind of know that they're going to be fine. And I'm curious what you think about this because the way I hear you talking about your role system is that like the way I understood you is that the purpose of the rotation is also to kind of distribute power a bit, or to like build this kind of co-ownership feeling. Yeah, there's not really a question. I'm just curious to hear what you think about this kind of empowerment piece, or power piece.
Yeah. What's coming up for me with that is this general idea that we're all on our own journeys, and often when we come together in community, that journey is active. That we're putting ourselves out there just to show up together, and it shines a light on all the things that we're working on, the insecurities that we have. And so, yeah, I think there's a balance there between people who are a little more forward leaning, and they're like, okay, I'm here, like, oh, I want to help out with that, and like, I'll try that out. You've got those folks for sure. But you can't just focus on those folks, because there's a lot of other folks that are kind of there in the background, and they're taking it in, and And yeah, I think that's why the way we've been doing roles behind the scenes, it just reminds me of, I used to work at the Boys and Girls Clubs after school program. And it was a challenging place to work because these kids come from all different backgrounds, and some of them have just frankly very shitty childhoods and very
Yeah.
shitty like home environments. And so we would debrief at the end of every day. All the staff would come together, we talk about what came up for them, how things are going, if there's any major issues that need to be addressed. And we would then make a strategy sometimes about who we're going to talk to the next day, if there were parents that we needed to call, if there are kids that we wanted to talk to. So in that sense, not as dramatic as that, not as like patronizing as that kind of tends to be when working with kids. With our village community, we think the same way of like, Cindy has never taken a grounding. What do you think she would think? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, Cindy's someone that doesn't want to be put on the spot. So does someone want to just mention that to her and see like how she reacts,
Yeah.
And then, okay, she said, this is actually kind of a real example of like, she said maybe she'd be up for it, but not like now, but she'll start thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, let's come back to her. And so next month we come back like, what do you think? You want to try this out, Cindy? And he's like, well, maybe in the moment, if it feels right, I'll do it, but I don't want to like sign up for it. It's like, okay, hey, that sounds good. Like, we'll throw you on the
Right, right,
spotlight.
right.
And
Yep.
we do it once and she does it. And so that's like that like sense that, yeah, we know you can swim.
Yeah.
We're just gonna kind of give you a little bit of a push here
Yep.
to
Yep.
see how it feels, but just acknowledging, stepping back, that as that feels natural and right, that feels like what Village is about. That's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into that. I mean, Cindy is now taking a lot of our time and attention and our capacity on a weekly basis to remember who we're reaching out to and making sure we're not dropping balls. If we say, we're going to connect with you again next month on this, making sure we do it. So that consumes a lot of capacity, and that ends up relating to the capacity that the group has, and to sustain the whole group, the capacity the core group has to sustain the whole community.
Yep.
It has to do with that, but it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is such a like common challenge in community organizing, that there's a few really dedicated people at the core, and they're trying to manage many different relationships with many different people, and always
Yeah.
trying to scan for like who's ready to be pulled in further, so we as the core can be more stable. And
Right. Which,
yeah,
and that brings up for me this sense to hold that loosely,
yeah,
and hold that with grace for yourself. So that's something that we've talked about, is sometimes when things don't go quite well or things are kind of falling apart, you just let it happen. You just
yep,
like let it fall the way apart, and you stand there with it falling apart. Sometimes people looking at you like, why'd you let it fall apart? And you're like, it's just, this is what happened, like
yeah.
what are we gonna do now?
Yep.
And that sometimes in those crazy moments, that's when other people unexpectedly will step up, and the group has a chance to learn. So there is a balance. Like, it's important for us to not get that savior complex as
Yep.
being at the core of the village and saying like, I have to follow up with every single village and I need
Right.
to make sure everyone gets a role. And it's just, you're human, and the mistakes you make are going to be things that we collectively learn from. And so that's a part of it. It's a part of the work. So again, that's why the core is its own separate group, where we have a different level of conversation and support that's different than what's in the village.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like a different challenge, different role, than being yeah, being engaged in a different capacity. Cool. I'm curious, are there any like specific challenges you're experiencing in like kind of localizing or becoming more yeah, neighborhood focused?
Yeah, I mean, the surprise for me working here is how few people showed up. We have like 1,000 people in this community. The very first gathering, we sent two emails out to the whole community, and I put one flyer up in the main community room like a couple days before the gathering, and we had 9 people show up. I'm like, this is great. Like, 9 was a really great group. We had an awesome gathering. Everybody had a good time, had good feedback. Said they were going to be back next month. So the next month, I walked around, I put 25 flyers up all around. Every building got a flyer. We sent 2 more emails out, but they were a little more timely, and they included the group photo. So we had like, here's proof, like here's your real people here. And I thought, okay, this is gonna be awesome. Maybe we'll have 15, I hope 20 people. 6 people showed up.
Mm.
And so So this just goes, I'm going back to where we were in some of these other communities in the early stages, is that there's not necessarily a correlation between the energy you put in and the number of people that show up and the
Yep.
way in which it grows. And I'm relearning that again now, and I'm remembering the most important lesson, which is consistency. Is you just have to, whoever shows up are the right people.
Right.
Be, just having the good energy of like, one person showed up, awesome, we're gonna have a cool hangout, the two of us, like, let's get into it. And with that energy is what builds villages. Not like, we didn't get enough people, so we can't do the program, so we're just gonna, like, cut this short. Like,
Yeah.
that flattens villages.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, there's nothing particular. I guess the other thing I'd mention is it's easy to overdo it, like to overdo the communication, and put too much on there. Like, because I'm coming in with like, we're building a village and you're going to be able to take roles and you're going to be able to lead engagements and you're going to be able to do all this stuff. And people are just like, what the heck are you talking about, dude? And so just saying, meet your neighbors.
Yep.
That's it. That's all. It's a place to meet your neighbors, and we've got a program for you to make it nice and easy.
Yep.
So we're working on our language, and kind of that's part of our intentions as a nonprofit, is to minimize that marketing, because there is some marketing that's needed around this, so that it makes sense for people as they're getting involved. And it also is opening up this concept of a journey. So we've been using this user experience kind of like modality, where everybody kind of goes through this journey, but instead of like in a business context where you're trying to get to a transaction, you're in a community sense. There's no one journey and there's no one place that you end up at. It's just movement towards.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're like, there's a visitor experience, there's a new member experience, there's a role taking experience, there's a core member experience. And that does feel kind of journey like, but between all those is just kind of all these spiraling. Some people just shoot right to the end, and other people swirl around visitor for a long time. So that's been a bit of a challenge, is trying to define the journey in a way that makes sense for all these different energy levels and different personalities and interests.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It also very much correlates with the experience I've had of like in-person local community building, and trying to like pull people in. It's like just takes time and consistency and showing up and like being kind of a reliable part of the environment. And then suddenly you're surprised and someone shows up that you never expected, and it's like, yeah, I know about you guys for ages and I never managed to come around, or something like that. I have been meaning to join for like 3 months.
Yeah, that's the gold.
Yeah.
That's why in the core we try to think about Village not in relation to membership. We have a membership so that there's a step in the journey, but not so that we define ourselves. So we think about the community as the whole, and that we're kind of the heart of our community. The whole village is a heart of the community, and maybe 5 or 10% of people will be somehow directly involved in the village. Some of them might come regularly, some of them might come a couple times a year. But then there's a network effect there, that all those that come to Village are inviting their spouses and their friends and others to special events that we do, or letting them know about things we talked about.
Yeah.
And that's they are a part of our village as well.
Cool. It sounds so amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to share at this point? That you think like, Jonas hasn't asked about this. Why hasn't he asked about this? It's so important.
Well, there is this question about like, how do we go about inviting people into, like, how do we build villages? Like, how do we as an organization? Because a lot of people like to think systemically. So, this kind of whole system design, the human-centered design, that we're trying to change the systems, the way the systems are operating today, and that our whole planet desperately needs this. And so I think the intuition that a lot of us doing this kind of work have is that it's both slow and urgent. That it needs to happen, but it's all relational, and you just got to take your time with it. So how do you harness that in a way to create kind of a movement, or create a lot of villages in a certain amount of time? So our idea we're working with right now for next year in Seattle in particular is a kind of a campaign. So we're looking to finalize some of our marketing materials, our website, and kind of the packet. We're gonna have like a member packet that has all the information they need. And then we're going to recruit village builders in particular. So we'll find a marketing campaign that attracts people who have some time in their life and some interest to come to us and create a cohort. And so I think you work with cohorts. I think cohorts are extremely powerful ways of getting us going up the mountain, right? You're like, it's best to do it as a group. So we'll do a cohort model. Everybody will be representing their local neighborhood, and then we'll deploy the resources collectively and see what happens from that. And so we'll kind of use our village core model where every week we're all coming together, we're doing check-ins, how are you doing, we're supporting each other, and we've got a bit of a journey with building in terms of, you know, deciding a pace that is right. Usually monthly is honestly the best pace to start with for a local community. And then you're papering the neighborhood, you're finding strategies to get out there, and that takes a lot of like, I don't like to do it alone, I like to go with someone else. So maybe we're like, you know, pairing up, and I'll go to your neighborhood one week and then you come to my neighborhood another week. So we're going to be doing that kind of stuff to lay the seeds, and then have maybe 10 or 20 villages rising up at the same time.
Wow, cool. That's amazing.
And the other piece is software too. So we love our software, and there's a lot of community building in the platform/software context, and I think it's a very alluring place to go, and at the same time it also is a dead end. It's not about that's not where relationships are built. Like, I like using social media, but I like using it for the people that I know, to get in touch with the people that I know, and not to broadcast to the world or to even receive broadcasts from the world. So in that sense, we're trying to step away from technology as much as possible. So we do have software we've written to help run villages, but it exists only in the back end and among the village core. So the software helps us identify who's taken roles, who hasn't taken a role before. So we can easily build those lists. It helps us do recruitment. We keep track of our visitors and following up with them, and who's done new member orientation. So that kind of stuff. So we do have software, and the software is wholly owned by the community itself. So all the data resides locally, and it can be operated completely independently. So each village can genuinely be completely independent if they desire that, if they want that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, this is so important to not get caught up in like trying to create the perfect tool and then you spend all your time in front of the screen.
I know, right?
I've been there, but
I know, I am there too. I have a development background, and I that's my favorite part of the work, is doing the software stuff. But yeah, like, that's what we've learned, is we can create these automations that are great for me. Like, it's, we have some emails that go out there automated, and like role taking and stuff, for example, we could have people be reminded automatically if they haven't taken a role in a month or so. And those ideas have been floated, and we've tried some of those things. But the reality is, people don't respond to the automations like they respond to a human, and it will always be like that. That will never change. And the day of AI, I'm even more hyper attuned to that. Like, if I get this personal email from a stranger that seems like oddly like specific, and I'm like, I think that was AI generated. I don't know this person. Like, I want to talk to humans. I don't want to talk to robots. So. Yeah, I think it goes back to minimal structure there as well.
Yeah. Cool. Where can people learn more if they want to learn more about this?
Yeah, we have two websites to kind of learn more about a village experience. You can go to meetvillage.org, MEET village.org, and that's in development. We're working on a complete overhaul of that right now. But that will be the place if there's an existing village and you're inviting someone in, you need a place to go so that they can kind of look into it a little before they join you. So that goes over kind of what the gathering experience is like. And then our nonprofit is located at villageco.org. Right. And that's just how we're structured. We're a sociocratically governed nonprofit. So we have general circle meetings every third Monday of the month. And we have about 20 volunteers on 7 daughter circles that are working in different areas, from platform to communications to finance. So we're all organized there at villageco.org.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna put all those links in the show notes, and maybe some micro solidarity folks want to check it out. And
yeah, I mean, the direct invitation here to the micro solidarity folks is, if you're feeling called to put your skills to use in your local community. I mean, first of all, we're all saying get out there and do it, because the best thing you can do is just get out there and do it and have the experiences, and whatever you're coming up with, whatever's bubbling up is great. Like, start with that. And if you would like to be kind of a part of if you resonate with Village and you want to be a part of what we're doing, this is a great time to get involved. We're looking for a lot of help in our nonprofit side. And we also have virtual villages that you can join from anywhere in the globe. So you can reach out to us, and the email is hello@meetvillage.org.
Cool. Perfect.
Cool.
Well, I gotta jump off, unfortunately, but it was a pleasure talking to you again. And let's stay in touch about these things and more, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll stay in touch for sure. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Too. Thank you for taking time. Have a good one. Ciao.
Okay. All right. Ciao.